It's an on-foot pursuit. Stop! Sir, stop!
Hi, John.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming on our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard your story and I saw all the things that you have been through and the things that you have accomplished, I thought that is exactly the type of person that we want on the Pursuit podcast. Okay. Could you tell me, let's just get into it. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
47 years old, grew up in Southern California, normal childhood, 13 years old, decided to make a left turn in life against my parents' wishes. Got involved with drugs, gangs, did that lifestyle, we'll say, from 13 to 32, probation, parole, prison, drugs, gangs, prison sentences in California. Got out, moved to Montana, decided to pursue a career in drugs, and did prison time in the state of Montana, and then went through a treatment program called Nexus, which is a DOC program, and turned my life around.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And thank you for sharing your story. I think it's very brave of you. And a lot of people aren't where you are today. I'm really curious about how you got there. Yeah, so you talked about, you kind of started with a criminal behavior at 13, you said.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
So in Southern California, obviously there's a lot of gangs.
Mhm.
And when my parents split, I was kind of doing what I wanted. And basically this kid, nobody could tell me what to do.
Mhm.
And as I got older, they still couldn't tell me what to do. Like if they tried telling me what to do, I would just go somewhere else. And then got in a gang fight, got put on probation. And then with gangs comes drugs, and became an addict, and everything was just that lifestyle, probation, parole, and that whole cycle of use and in and out of jail. It's a lifestyle there. I mean, it really is, especially in Southern California in the 90s, early 2000s. And I made a career out of it. Like, it's what you do when you're a white kid in Southern California.
Okay.
My parents did their best, but if there's you can be told what to do and say no and go somewhere else. And that's what I would do. Like my dad would say, hey, you can't do this. So I'd bail.
Run away.
Right away.
And you would always have someone that would take you in?
Yeah. I mean, there was always somewhere to go. There's apartments everywhere and there's people everywhere.
So when you're saying a gang, you're involved with a gang with other juveniles or in adults? Adults. So were you a runner? Were you selling?
I was selling weed as a kid,
Uh-huh.
and then started selling meth, and then at 18-ish would collect for meth dealers, and then found out it was easier to rob drug dealers. My grandpa was a retired cop, so I learned this in Nexus. I always justified my crimes as I never do anything to innocent people. So my philosophy was, if you were a drug dealer or a gang member, it was open game. Because I didn't want anything happen to like my family. I didn't think about, well, just because that person's a gang member, they have family that's not a gang member, or just because that person's a drug dealer, they have family that's not a drug dealer.
Sure.
And that's was how I justified it in my head.
So what does that look like, ripping off a drug dealer?
Basically, you knock on the door, stick a pistol in their face and say, give me your stuff.
And what if they got like 12 buddies sitting in there?
Then it turns kind of cowboy real quick.
Have you been through that?
Yes, a few times.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you elaborate?
Basically there's shots fired.
Really?
Yeah. But it's Southern California. So you can literally do a shooting and it doesn't make the news.
Wow. So
thankfully I was blessed to grow up around guns. So I knew gun safety. So I was a punk kid, but I guess in my mind, I was a safe punk kid. Like I didn't do drive-by shootings. I didn't Like, you don't pull a gun unless you're going to use it. That
Mhm.
was kind of how I was raised. So there wasn't the crap you see on TV. It
Mhm.
was, I guess, as safe as it could be. Yes, there was a lot of justification in my life back then,
Mhm.
but I was still a punk kid.
So, and this started at what age as far as the drug
With
grips?
the drugs 14, guns 15.
Okay. Where would your parents did like where would you keep them? They wouldn't.
I was all over the place. Like, I stolen cars.
Mhm.
So trying to think, that was a lot of years ago. My grandpa died when I was 15. So 16, I think I was living with buddies, and then I'd live with my grandma, and then just kind of trap house to trap house.
Okay. And so you went from juvenile detention to an adult facility in California?
No, I was also a spoiled little shit. So I had a lawyer. So it was always probation.
Interesting.
Yeah. I didn't go make it to prison until I was 21. I finally went to prison.
And that was in California
Yeah.
or California?
Yeah.
Is that federal or state?
State.
State. Have you ever been involved in the federal system?
No.
Okay. Do you have an opinion on the difference of we do have a lot of criminal possession of dangerous drug cases, but also criminal distribution of dangerous drugs.
Let me silence this. Sorry.
No problem. Do you think that there's a difference even today in the mindset of the person that's dealing as compared to someone who has drugs on their person?
The drug scene's completely different now than it was 30 years ago. Like, everybody is chasing the addiction and chasing the high, and nobody's chasing the money. So the mentality's different. Like, now, I don't know, it's weird. And I haven't done anything in 15 years, and that's how it was 15 years ago. But if you drive down the street and see how people on drugs act, it's way different. Like, it's different.
Is it the type of drug or is it
I think it's the crap coming across the border
okay?
and what it's cut with. I'm friends with a lot of people in law enforcement and friends with pre-release staff, and just hearing the way they talk about it, like, the mentality of the people is different. Not that there was morals in the crime world, but there was still somewhat like a code of ethics in that society that's not there anymore.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
different. It's a lot different.
Were you ever involved in the production
No.
of meth? No.
Mm-mm.
Had you ever seen a meth lab?
Yep.
Have you seen them make meth, cook
Yeah,
meth?
in a garage. That was back before it was really popular, like early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Back when you could still go to the pharmacy and buy the Sudafed, and it was made with road flares.
Yes. I was going to ask you actually, what ingredients go into a meth lab that you've seen?
Back then it was road flares, pseudoephedrine, and hydrochloric acid. Some type of acid. I can't remember.
And how long does it take to make?
It was a day back then.
How much does that make in a day?
A coffee filter.
Coffee
But it
filter.
was just like a guy from the bar cooking it. It wasn't like how it is now, mass production type stuff.
Well, and we used to have meth labs in backpacks.
Back then it was called biker dope because it was the bikers that made it before it was made in manufactured facilities in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. So you moved from California. What brought you to Montana?
There's no way to own a home in California. It's too expensive. So better way of living. I do a lot of off-roading when I wasn't being a scumbag. And I came up to Butte, and you could literally go off-roading 2 miles out of town. So it was like the perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know Butte was like the meth capital of Montana. And so I relapsed the night that I moved up here. And then everything went to hell in a handbasket again.
Would you say that what's your drug of choice
Back then was
back then?
meth.
And that's
Meth.
when you were talking about drug use, it's pretty
Yeah, it
much
was meth.
exclusively meth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What is meth like?
No, then no sleep, just constant go, 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 go.
Mm-hmm.
And then after so many days, paranoia, visions, you don't sleep. You're constantly on the go.
I've seen that same behavior now. People are up for days, and it can either exacerbate mental health conditions or cause one.
Yeah. Now I think it makes it worse mental health because there's so many co-occurring issues with meth where this 15 years ago, you'd see guys at Nexus that had mental health issues that were probably meth induced, that probably didn't have mental health issues because they had no history of it until the meth use.
Do you maintain any of the contacts that you had in California, or even from the time that you were in prison here? No.
There's two guys that I went through Nexus with that are both really successful that I occasionally talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that,
And just to editorialize a little bit here, Nexus is a 9-month, very intense treatment program that the Department of Corrections offers.
Yes.
And you completed that when?
2013.
And you seem to have good things to say about it.
Yes, it was amazing.
I'm glad to hear
It
that.
was amazing. It saved my life.
Really?
Yeah, because I was doing the cycle over and over and over again.
Mhm.
It taught me and reminded me of the stuff I was raised to learn that you forget when you become an addict.
Mm.
You know, just normal human decency and empathy and big picture ripple effect.
What about the program made those core values come back to the forefront?
It was in the curriculum. They had cognitive principles and restructuring. So there was, victims letters, and you couldn't BS your way through it because it was facilitated by other addicts. So like if you do a lifeline and say the dude's a meth head and there's nothing regarding violence, you could call bullshit on it. It's like there's no way you're doing meth for 20 years and you're not violent.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no BSing your way through it. And then there was the assignment that stood out the most for me. It was the shattered glass assignment, where like you break a piece of glass and it shows how your crime affects and it spreads out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that kind of hit the most.
The ripple effect
Mhm.
of the people that are affected by your actions,
Right.
basically.
Because it blew holes in my justification that I'm only affecting other criminals and drug addicts, because that was as far as I would look. I didn't look outside of that. And then that assignment made me look outside of that. And then that was kind of the turning point. I was like, hey, yeah, I am a piece of shit and I should probably stop being a piece of shit.
Well, I would never refer to you as that. But I mean, that's the way that you felt. I do hear sometimes people coming from Nexus saying they felt that way.
Yeah.
And is that because they're taking accountability, or is that something that other people have told them?
Taking accountability.
Okay.
Like the stuff that we do when we're addicts is not decent human behavior by any means. Like there's no way, like all of the pro-social terms that society has come up with in the last decade to make justifications for people's behavior is BS. You make a choice to make the decisions that you make when you're doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choice. Like you can put all the science hoopla crap on it. It's still a choice you made to do those things.
That's a very powerful statement. I don't know that I've heard a lot of people admit to that or realize that, to be honest. Are you very proud of, is your family proud of you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And when you got out of Nexus, did you go right to the community or did you go to a pre-release?
I went to Helena pre-release.
Okay. And what was that like?
It's a pre-release. I know Amy Tanning and Annette Carter. So I went through Helena pre-release once after doing meth ITU at Deer Lodge, and I learned a bunch of cool stuff. Didn't learn everything I needed. So I went to pre-release, got out, relapsed. And then I wrote Annette Carter and Amy Tanning a letter saying, hey, I screwed up. Can you guys get me into treatment? And I never heard anything. And then one day I was on a bus to Nexus, and then went to Nexus and got to Helena pre-release and got a job, and here I am.
So, when you were mentioning you were on probation as a juvenile,
Mhm.
but I imagine being on run and not being in school and maybe being around negative associates doesn't lead to life skills. So when you turn 18, there's kind of a gap there, I would imagine. How did you learn those skills?
I know by ninth grade, I could count, read, and write. And like I had a real good upbringing. So I wasn't a dumb kid. Like my grandparents owned their own business, and my mom owned her own business, and my dad was manager of a fairly large company. So that was part of the reason I quit school, was like I could read, write, and count. And I've always had work ethic. So it wasn't on my bouts of getting sober, I could get a job.
Well, I'm looking at 18-year-olds today, and I'm sometimes wondering how they do it. It's almost comical that they're doing it.
Yeah.
Because you're like checking accounts, I mean, utilities, all that stuff, that if you don't have someone helping you through that, how do you learn all those things?
I was blessed by good parents. So I knew it all at a really young age.
And when you were mentioning, you said you were spoiled, and so you were on probation. And I want to talk a little bit about within the criminal justice system, it seems that there's the stick and the carrot.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more stick and sometimes it's more carrot. And it is individual, I think, to the person, but also the criminal justice system takes on like little themes. Like when you were saying that there's kind of an out for certain behaviors. I've noticed that there is a minimization of crimes committed by like 18 to 23-year-olds saying, oh, their brain's not formed yet, so you shouldn't hold them accountable for those behaviors. And the 18, that's an at-risk age, not just because their brain's not developed, but they're
still making a conscious decision to do the crime. And if there's no consequences at 18, so then you have 18 to 26 that there's no consequences, so they don't learn anything. And then at 26, they're going and shooting somebody. So there needs to be consequences, whether they're 14, 17, or 26. You got to have a stick before you can. It's like raising a kid.
It is. It is. And as you know, I used to be a probation officer for 13 years. And there's times that people respond well to the stick. They respond well to the carrot. And it's really based on that individual.
Right.
There are behaviors that just they're not acceptable for society.
Right.
Do you think that there are certain crimes that can't be treated from what you've seen in prison?
Crimes or behaviors, because it's kind of like you go back to the 3 strikes rule and everybody crying about somebody that gets 25 to life for stealing a piece of pizza. That's the crime that they got busted for. Nobody does just one crime. It's a pattern of behavior. So yeah, somebody's in prison for this. That's all they got caught for. So it's not just one crime. It's all of the crimes. That I think as society, we need to look at the big picture. So if they're doing this, guaranteed they're doing this.
Can you walk me through that? So if they're convicted for distribution, what else are they doing?
Guarantees there's something involving weapons. Guaranteed there's something involving violence, because you can't distribute guns without committing acts of violence. Because if somebody owes you money, how are you going to collect your money? You can't collect your money unless you have a gun. 9 times out of 10, if somebody's distributing drugs, they're probably not allowed to have a gun. So there's 3 felonies right there off the top of my head without putting any thought into it. Very rarely does anybody just commit one crime. Just in my umpteen years of.
But do you think that there is a stagger of the intensity of the crime? I mean, and I'm not minimizing it, but is there a difference between someone who hurts a child than to somebody who is using meth?
I think it's a different mentality of person. And to do kids, that's kind of because I'm a dad, I don't have very much patience for people that hurt kids. Thinking of like child abuse cases, I can see where someone who abuses a kid might not do other crimes and might not be involved in criminal lifestyle. But I would think they would be more prone to do that same crime, if that makes sense.
So they might hurt whoever's by them.
Right. If somebody, because it's violent behavior. So if somebody is hurting a kid, what's to say they're not going to hurt their spouse? Not that everybody, I mean, not all child abuse charges are legit, because you get relationship issues with
Mhm.
spouses and stories get made up. I mean, nothing is always black and white when it comes to that.
I've always said that the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Right.
In prison, is there amongst the inmates, do they perceive certain crimes to be worse than the others, and are the inmates treated by each other accordingly?
It depends what state you're in. California, yes. Montana is its own entity. At least it was when I was in prison. From what I've heard now, it's kind of different, because I guess now there's gangs in the prison system here. Anybody that touched kids was basically a piece of shit. Like in California, it was green light. You could do whatever. Like a child molester wasn't allowed to walk the yard in prison in California. Montana, it was different. Everybody had to get along.
How do they make people get along?
And here, basically, there's very little violence in the prison system here compared to California. California, you could stab people and you go to the hole for 30 days and you get back out. I behaved when I was in prison here because I'd become a dad. So I didn't get involved with all the BS in the prison system here.
You'd made a comment about now that there's gangs in the prison, it might be different. How does that make it different to where certain crimes are treated differently?
In California, the gangs run the prison. I'm not sure how the prisons are being ran in like close 1 and close 2 here, because if the politics of California's prison system come to Montana, then a child molester wouldn't be able to be in the same housing unit.
Right.
But I don't know the schematics of how that looks. Just
How do inmates find out about other inmates' crimes?
typically guards, at least in California.
Because the guards wanted them to be treated
Yeah.
poorly and
Oh,
they
yeah.
wanted a further punishment?
Nobody likes a child molester.
No. Of course not.
Yeah. So it was.
Except for other child molesters.
Right. So in California, the guards would tell you, hey, this dude's a child molester, show you the guy's file, and then.
Do you think that works? I mean, to police your own people?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's necessarily society right, but yes.
Well, we used to hold each other accountable.
Right.
I mean, we used to be our own really law enforcement per se,
Right.
and then we decided that we were going to be a civilized society and we were going to leave that up to law enforcement to
Right.
deal with all those problems, and we're not going to hold each other accountable.
Right.
And then everybody starts, oh, law enforcement's too mean. I don't like the way they're talking to so-and-so. I don't like the way that they're roughing up anybody who
Right.
fights them back, or we don't want law enforcement, getting too violent, even though they're defending, and now
Yeah.
they're taking that away. So now you really just have a lot of chaos.
Right. And look at how bad crime is, and look at how bad the drugs are. You tied law enforcement's hands. You've tied the politicians that want to do stuff's hands, and this is the cesspool we have now.
Do you think that the things that you learned in Nexus, do you think that somebody with a violent crime, and I'm not talking about the crimes relating to drugs, but child molestation, partner family member assaults, the really violent crimes against people that you're supposed to be protective of. Will Nexus help them?
My personal opinion is no, because I don't think those people can be fixed. At Nexus, we're taught that regardless of a crime, all crimes are equal, and it's beat into your brain. I don't think somebody that does something to kids can be fixed. I think we should go back to 1870 when it comes to that, but that's just my personal opinion.
Have you had to have communication with those type of people while you were at MSP?
No,
None.
no. I'm real good at being proactive and not putting myself in situations at all that I don't want to be in.
Um, I used to be a juvenile PO as well, and I sat down one of the juveniles that was just running his life into the ground, with a adult offender, and he broke down MSP very, very good. You know, not necessarily MSP, but the prison system.
Mhm.
To this kid, just saying, this is where your life is going, and the games that are played in here, you have no idea. And even if you were my own kid, if you have something I want, and I'm gonna take it.
Right.
Is that true?
Um, I don't know about now. When I was at MSP, no.
So it was more of everyone got along?
Yeah.
Really? That's very
It's a
surprising to me.
completely different environment in Montana. At least it was 14, 15 years ago.
You're basically telling me right now that MSP is safer than being on the streets in California, just living in
Yes.
California.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it
I
is.
really hope Montana doesn't turn into anything like that.
I think the person that's running MSP has a good handle on stuff. So I think it will stay that way.
Jim Salmonson, he's an amazing
Yeah,
man.
he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that he has a really good head on his shoulders as far as the stick and the carrot.
Yeah.
What would a typical day at MSP look like for you? You wake up, is there treatment offered to you? Do you get to go outside into the
When
yard?
I was there, I did meth ITU.
Okay.
So it was go to breakfast, come back, do treatment, do lunch, walk to lunch, come back. I want to say there was treatment after, and then somewhere in between there was yard. But now that they're implementing a new treatment program,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what that looks like.
And yes, that's a new treatment model called ICPM, and that's from Canada.
Yep.
Actually, that they're incorporating for sex offenses, for violent offenses.
Anger management. The
Yes,
language, yeah.
which is good. What is your opinion on forcing treatment on some? I mean, when you put someone in prison, I think society expects that they're given treatment. I have seen people that have gone through treatment 8, 9, 10, 11, 12
Right.
times.
If they don't get it, they don't get it. My personal opinion, I think everybody should have to do treatment before they get out. At least so they're aware. Whether they retain it or not, that's up to them, but at least they're given the opportunity to learn the tools that they need.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they take it, it's up to them. But it goes back to that choice. They make the choice to commit the crimes. They can also make that choice to turn their life around. So if the DOC gives them the opportunity, here's the tools you need not to be a scumbag for the rest of your life.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't keep patting everybody on the butt with rainbows and freaking butterflies. But if we at least give them the tools, give them the opportunity, if they don't use it, then that's on them. Society did their part.
Mm-hmm. And were you on probation ever or parole?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And what do you think about supervision strategies?
I think it needs personal opinion.
That's
I think probation and parole should have more discretion. Officers should have more discretion, more case management, less. Here's your conditions for the same for everybody. I think it should be more on an individual basis.
mm-hmm.
Just because an 18-year-old me and a 32-year-old me need different conditions. Like when I'm an 18, 19-year-old punk kid, I need as many conditions as possible, and I need a stick, and I need watched, and I need a Michelle Jenisic type of parole officer. But when I'm 32, I need somebody that trusts me, gives me the benefit of the doubt, that instills hope, that is a support network and not an ass.
Right. And I think that comes with experience from the PO.
Right.
And it takes a bit to get to learn that. And I don't think that POs are taught that all crimes are the same. Like I believe that. I think that POs do look at the crime and kind of think, oh, I can kind of expect these type of behaviors. We definitely don't. And I thought that was really interesting what you said about Nexus. That basically they said, oh, it's kind of like saying every sin is the same.
Right.
It's equal.
Yeah.
I can see that, I guess. But there does have to be some consequence at some
Right.
time. What about the person, like in your case, that went through Nexus, put in that hard work, went through, I assume, 6 months of a pre-release, come out to the community, is working and trying, and they relapse? Is that a crime?
So on probation and parole, you're not allowed to drink. Drinking was never one of my issues. My issue was meth. I got an awesome PO when I got out, and my PO told me, gave me all the conditions of my parole and said, if you drink or do anything, don't lie to me, be honest. And he set the tone for our relationship. 2 days after, I went to a Trace Atkins concert and had a beer. Somebody else that was on parole got busted. So there was pictures. Annette Carter saw a picture of me with a beer in my hand, called me into her office. My PO asked me what was up. So I was honest. And they asked me what I thought basically my sanctions should be. And I said, this, and this. And that's what Annette Carter went with and my PO went with. But it set the tone because I was honest. I didn't get thrown back in jail. Like, I owned my behavior because I knew what my conditions were. I knew I broke my conditions. Like, I owned it. I owned my behavior. So I had my sanctions and we moved on.
Whether you're into getting fit or staying fit or just having fun with the family, join the Peak Health and Wellness Center today. With 2 great locations in Great Falls, they're here to serve you. If you like weightlifting, functional fitness, or enjoy a wide selection of cardio equipment, the Peak has everything you need. They also offer classes for all ages and fitness levels. The Peak even has a daycare for those busy parents out there. Go check out the Peak today. The Double Barrel Cafe is all about you, the amazing people of Cascade County. With every purchase you make, they give back to our community. Every bite and sip fuels their mission. Let's make a positive change, 1 cup and 1 bite at a time, because the Double Barrel is not just a cafe, they're building a better community. If you haven't noticed lately, Cascade County is booming, and the choice for all your construction needs is Builders First Source. They even have an automated home builders solution for all of your construction needs. Go to 826 Northwest Bypass in Great Falls and check them out today. Are you looking to replace those floors in your home? Or maybe you're doing new construction? The place I trust is Contract Flooring Carpet One. This is a locally owned and operated business here in Great Falls, and they are committed to serving you and giving you the very best prices and the very best product and service. Go see Contract Flooring Carpet One today. You'll be floored. When deciding who I would trust for the technology component of this podcast, the choice was simple: Information Systems of Montana. Whether purchasing products for business or when I had them build me a new MacBook to catch child predators, they delivered, creating a solution for my exact needs. Contact Information Systems of Montana today. Everybody needs a good insurance plan. Whether it's for home or auto insurance, check out Heinbaugh Agency. Eric Heinbaugh is a local agent focused only on customer service, not sales. If you're passionate about firearms and the Second Amendment like I am, one of the best places in all of Montana to go is Mitchell Supply. Jim and Tammy Mitchell have been running this gun store for decades. They're major supporters of the Second Amendment, and they're major supporters of our community. And obviously, they're supporters of this podcast. For all your firearms needs, go check out Mitchell Supply today.
If there was one bit of information that I could get into a probationer or parolee, CR even now, if they're in their mindset, if you be honest with your PO, they
Right.
won't think you're doing all these other crimes.
Right. Yeah. And then
'Cause
that
you're-
was literally my only hiccup. I ended up getting off early, and
Good
because
for you.
all I did was work. I mean, I had a daughter, so
So you were granted conditional discharge from supervision?
yeah, early.
Good for you. Good for
So.
you. How long have you been off supervision?
A long time. I don't
Long
know. I work a lot.
Yes.
I want to say at least 6 years, 7, give or take. I know I graduated Nexus in 2013, and we're in 2024.
Yeah,
So
a long time.
yeah.
And so you really felt that when you came out of the pre-release that you could your PO is
Landon Lamb.
Landon. Okay. I know Landon.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
I think everybody, not that he needs any more work on his caseload, but I think every new PO should be trained by Landon.
Really? What did you like the most about him?
He was no bullshit and he was honest and he actually cares. Like you get, so I meet a lot of the new POs just because of my employment and I can see which ones are going to make it and which ones don't before they even get to where they're going. Landon actually gives a shit about the people on his caseload. It's not just a paycheck, which probably isn't all that healthy for him. But he cares and he's been doing it long enough that he knows what he's doing. I mean, prime example with when I got busted with the beer, like I was comfortable enough to say, yeah, I had a beer, even though I broke my conditions, and comfortable enough to face whatever consequences I had coming for making that bad decision.
I would like to, if I could go back in time, I bet that your recommendation for your sanction was probably worse than what he would have given you.
Oh, it was. What did I put? I said, I can't even remember. It was pretty intense.
Did you go through the intensive supervision program, ISP, the bracelet?
No, I didn't do bracelet. Whatever, because everything's changed. And basically I had to go blow every day at the pre-release.
ESP.
Yeah, that's what it was. ESP till discharge to my suspended sentence. And I basically came up with everything that wouldn't affect me working.
Oh, gotcha. Didn't it affect your work schedule?
No.
So that's really, it's funny because you've brought up work a lot since we've been talking, and that really kind of, that focus that you had to be successful at a job really pulled you out a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kind of a funny story when my husband and I actually met on a call like 20 years ago. He was working as a police officer at the Great Falls Police Department. I worked for Department of Family Services, and we both got sent to the same call. And I was lecturing the guy on what he needed to do. We ended up having to put his kids in care. And my husband's like, you need to get you need to get a job. That's what you need to get. I'm like, oh no, you need to do treatment. And I think both is right, but men in particular get a lot of confidence out of working.
I was blessed with parents with good work ethic and grandparents with good work ethic. And it's a good focus. Like I could put all that effort into being a criminal. If I put that effort into being successful at life, why not do it?
So more free time that's what really gets people in trouble, is the amount of free time that they have.
Free time and associates. There was a thing up at Nexus on the wall, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. So after I got out of pre-release, I think I might have been on TL. I can't remember. Me and my daughter were watching Wizards of Waverly Place and she rolled over and said, Daddy, no more getting locked up. I went through my phone and deleted everybody that I knew from my past. And that was it. And then now I have all kinds of friends and it's a completely different circle of friends.
And lifestyle-wise.
Oh, yeah.
So I just wanted to tell you this because I have listened to your story a little bit. There is a study that was done by Dr. Tara Stewart. She is a professor at Oxford University. She's a neuroscientist. And if you have positive pro-social relationships, no smoking, but she just mentioned you quit 3 years ago, minimal episodes of binge drinking, and the absence of a lack of addiction to opiates. For men, that adds 24 years to your life. These are with people with addiction issues.
Right.
And for women, 21.
Oh, well.
Looks like you did that.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's hard to do though. So do you basically just have to scratch your whole way out of this? You getting yourself into a hole. You have to delete all of your contacts.
That's what I did. And it was mainly because Up until recently, I had terrible tastes in women. So I wanted to make sure if life got rough, I didn't know where to get anything as far as drugs.
Okay.
Like just kind of a cushion for coping skills, like if I didn't know where anything was at. And just stuff I learned at Nexus, kind of like in the back of my head. And that sign at Nexus, show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
So your horrible taste in women. What do you mean? Like, what do you mean by that?
Just unhealthy relationships.
So kind of keeping up with like the chaos.
Yeah. People in that lifestyle. My daughter's mom was in that lifestyle. That's how I became a dad. My daughter's not biologically mine. Like I met her mom in the drug lifestyle, and then my daughter decided I was going to be her dad just before her 5th birthday. And now my daughter's 21 years old.
She's probably very proud of you.
Yeah, my kid's badass. At 21, she's AGM at Sally's Beauty, and then she's a manager key holder at GameStop. She's got like a 770 credit score and graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like my kid kicks ass at life.
That's probably very refreshing for you because you know what happens if they don't. And it seems like you were the person that kind of put your hand out to her. She didn't have a dad.
Yeah.
And you stepped up for that role.
So her brother's dad was her dad like the first couple years of her life. But he got smart and separated from the kids' mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then her brother's kicking ass at life and doing good and made me a grandpa. And
Cool.
so, yeah.
Was there people in your life when you were young who tried to be that person for you other than your parents? Was there someone that tried to mentor you?
I had an older brother.
Okay.
Wasn't biologically my older brother, but taught me how to ride a bike and how to fight and how to skate and do all the stuff big brothers do. I just at 13, I decided I was going to do what I wanted to do, and there was nobody going to tell me different.
Where did that come from?
I have no idea. My Aunt Rose nicknamed me Little Shit when I was a little kid. I think I was just a stubborn little shit from the get-go.
So do you think that you were drawn to because you bring up stubborn, and that tells me a little bit that you thrive in kind of like a friction type environment, a challenging environment.
Maybe because I do real good at my job and it's a circus nonstop. So maybe I've never really looked at it that way.
Well, you changed some of the friction in your life to positive, but still friction.
Yeah.
Still a challenge. Still your brain's still going all the
Oh,
time,
yeah,
figuring out
nonstop.
problems.
Yeah. And I volunteer for so much different stuff that my plate is full all the time.
Mm-hmm. So in Nexus, they talk to you about triggers,
Mm-hmm.
red flags. Was that something that you tell your loved ones? Hey, if I'm doing these things, this is a sign.
No, because it's been so long I
So
don't
long.
have triggers or anything. Like my first couple of years out, trying to think. I don't even remember what my triggers were. Like I know as far as like emotional trigger, the only one I have is my kid. Like if somebody comes after my kid, I really struggle with being an adult.
Mhm.
But other than that, I don't, because it's been over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to know all the stuff, like everything I learned in Nexus, but like life moved on.
And what advice would you give to someone that's just starting over, though? Getting out of pre-release and they have maybe 5 or 6, 10 years ahead of them on supervision.
I usually tell everybody to disassociate from everybody they ever knew and figure life out. Don't get in a relationship. Don't talk to any of their old friends. It's okay to be lonely for a while and make new friends, because it's literally the only way you're going to be successful. Because even if you stay in contact with even one person from your past, it's still a tether to your past.
Yeah. And then you kind of always then do know that there is somewhere you might be able to go
Right.
to get that.
Or even just the shit show that is that lifestyle. Like some people thrive on it and get sucked back into it.
Or can't get out.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Um, for people who have somebody who is struggling with an addiction and maybe a parent to a child, what do you think is a safe period where you can just breathe a sigh of relief that, okay, they've got it? Like someone in your case, they've
years.
seen the light. 2 years.
2 years. So when I was in Glendive Regional, that Dawson Community College offered a course on like the effects of meth on the brain. I don't remember all of it, but I remember it takes 2 years for the brain to start functioning. And my personal life, the history, my relapse would always happen under 2 years. So 2 years was kind
2
of like,
years. Would that be no alcohol or just your drug of choice?
it depends. Like if you're a drug addict then that's all you do is drugs, it would be drugs. But most people are drugs and alcohol.
Well, and I even want to go a little deeper than just the drug use because it's a coping.
Right, it's a
You're
coping mechanism.
self-medicating, and there's a lot of really deep issues that people don't want to really delve into. And it might not just be the use, but the criminal thinking is still there.
Mhm.
You know, I could cut corner here, I could cut corner there. I
Right.
don't have to do things the right way. It just leads into another problem. Have you seen that?
California was all about money. Like it was easy money, it was a lifestyle. Here it was all coping mechanisms to escape. So it's really depending on where you live and why you're doing it, I guess.
Interesting. So is large amounts of money, would that be something that someone, so, I mean, let me rephrase that. In some regards, it would be easy money.
Right. Yeah, because
And
you
then you
can
come,
go to Mexico or to San Diego and get a whole bunch real cheap, and then you drive it up here and it's like 10 times.
right, instead of doing the grind.
Right. Instead of going and getting a job.
Mm-hmm. I wish that I could, like, how do we get your result out there to the world? More of your experience and how far you've come.
Right. Society.
Do you think it's
I
society?
think that's what it boils down to is how people are raising their kids. I mean, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if parents aren't instilling work ethic and responsibility into their kids, how are the kids going to know
Mm-hmm.
responsibility? And then as they get older, and then there's instances where, kids don't have parental influences for whatever reasons. So then that's where society is forced to step in. Well, then society is doing all this patting on the back and there's no discipline there. And here, let's hand you money and let's wipe your college debt. Let's do this and do
Mhm.
that. So how is that teaching them
Mm-hmm.
any responsibility? They're not making anybody work for anything.
Yeah, the truth is that life is hard.
Right.
That's it.
It's even harder if you're stupid. It's just society as a whole isn't teaching work ethic. Like everything's handouts anymore. And that's a big problem,
Okay.
just in my opinion.
And you mentioned that you had siblings growing up.
Yeah, I got a little brother. I went off to prison. He went off to college to become a preacher.
I was going to ask you, did you have the same parents when
Yeah.
you separated? And,
Yeah.
and you guys just took completely opposite paths?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you said that in California, you keep kind of bringing back, in California, it's different. California is
It's
different. I'm
completely
trying to get a better idea of that.
It's completely different. I mean, I've been up here for 15. I've been up here a long time. It's just the lifestyle's different. Like Southern California is all gangs. The prison system's all gangs. It's all politics. Everything is money based in the prison system. Up here, everybody's chasing a high. It's not money based. It's escaping reality. It's the drugs. It's just different. It's the criminal element in California 20 years ago had like ethics, I guess, or moral standards in that society they followed. Up here. It's you should look out for yourself. It's different.
In Montana, you look out for yourself?
Yeah. It's all about you and what you can get for yourself.
In a good or a bad way?
In a bad way. So like growing up, if my dad's house, somebody broke down on the side of the road, he'd stop and help. So even when I was being not a member of society, like you'd still help somebody out. And that's kind of like the mentality in gangs down there. Up here, it's the complete opposite. Like, say you see somebody that needs a pair of shoes, like you're not going to help. The average person in the prison system up here is not going to help that guy out. The average drug addict's not going to help that person out because it's all about that person. Everybody is extremely selfish in that lifestyle up here.
Just interesting that the culture is so different.
And I think it's because of the gangs and everything is so gang orientated in California.
So they might, in a gang, say, kids are off
Right.
limits. Don't
Yep.
you dare do something like that, or there'll
Right.
be consequences. And
Yep.
we don't have that here.
Correct.
Oh.
So which is good because with that comes a whole new issue of crap that's not good.
Yeah, it's really yeah, I
But,
can see where
yeah.
both of them would kind of be a shit
Right.
show.
That's why it comes back to parenting, like in society. Like if parents are teaching their kids that stuff is earned and you have to work, then the kids grow up right. And if society is teaching society that you have to work for it and it's not handed to you, then people are earning it and working for it. And then we alleviate less of the crap. And it's just like being on parole and probation. When I was putting in the work to be successful, my PO was right there helping me along. But I was putting in the work, like I put in the effort. And then if you get somebody, a PO that's just there for a paycheck and not really encouraging or being supportive or whatever that particular person needs, and is just letting that offender float along and not putting in the work, then I guarantee that person's going to get locked back up.
I always tried when I had people on my caseload, I would get a lot deferred sentences, which are, the sentences that come off your record, and it's usually their first felony. Try a lot of things, and then I would try jail after multiple interventions for 2 or 3 days because they had never been to jail because they're on a deferred sentence to see if that might get their attention. The people that came back after going to jail that were just, I never want to go back there again. I never want to. Were always successful. The ones that came back and were like,
no big deal.
I know that person is going to be 15 or 20 years before it kicks in. And those are the ones that end up going to prison.
Right.
I don't know an alternative to that. I know that people have tried.
It's a mindset. Like you have to make a choice and a decision. Hey, I don't want this lifestyle anymore, and stop. Because if you get to that point, obviously something has failed and that's where you're at in life. So then it comes back to you make a choice whether to do those behaviors or don't do those behaviors.
It does. It comes back to what you've decided to do
with your life.
Yeah. And before you know it, you're going to be 60 years old.
Right.
Happens faster than you think. Is there any particular advice that you would give to probation parole officers? I mean, maybe the new officers who don't have that experience to say, this person, the carrot and the stick type scenario that we were talking about.
Be honest with the guys on your caseload, and hopefully if they're applying to be a PO, they care, and that's why they're in that profession. I mean, show that you care within reason. I mean, I don't know how to describe.
So
like
when you
Landon's
care,
like he laid the law down and said, look, this is where it's at. If you do this, you're basically it's not going to be okay. Follow the rules and don't lie. Like he told me right where I was at. So I knew at the get-go where I stood. So there was, the guidelines that were laid at the beginning, but, he asked how things were going. He gave a shit. And there was a time where there was a bunch of not cool stuff going on in my life after, I think, 4 years. And he called and checked on me every day. Hey, how's it going? Good, just working. Just to make sure, because he knew my home life was kind of a shit show. And that group that I'm on, pretty much everybody that's on that group that's been successful, the recurring theme is the PO cared.
Interesting.
Having a PO give a shit about a person, is tenfold to people being successful.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me about that group? What is the name? I know the initial.
Citizens Advisory Council. So the Department of Corrections basically pulled together a bunch of success stories and people who have been successful at life that have the math, I want to say, is over 200 plus years involved combined on the wrong side, and 240 plus years combined on the other side. Basically to find out what worked for us and to get our opinions and thoughts, and basically to hear the other side, because we're all success stories. So something worked because we're where we're at.
That's the magic question, isn't it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have varying different opinions and ideas. And I mean, there's one of the recurring themes for all of us is we had POs that cared, and POs that set the guidelines. But that's one of the recurring themes is the PO cared.
Am I understanding you correctly too, in that you think that they should know what the consequence will be for a certain? You
Right.
want to know what your consequence.
You want to know where
is
you stand. You don't want some wishy-washy that 1 minute says this and then the next minute acts differently. If I can't remember the gal's name, there's a Billings parole officer that was former law enforcement, and she's a total hard ass. But she's also a nice, caring person. But stay a hard ass. You can still be caring and be a hard ass, but let the guy know, hey, I'm a hard ass. Don't be wishy-washy, because especially somebody that's coming out, they need consistency in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that's key, because if you're sending mixed signals to somebody that's already not sure what the hell is going on in their own life, mixed signals is the worst thing you could do to somebody.
So really focus on those details.
Right.
When you're coming up with supervision strategies. Specific, what what you can expect from me and what I
Right.
can expect from you.
And be honest. I had one particular parole officer at one point in my life that said one thing and did something else, and that didn't go over really well with me.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Yeah.
You want to know where you stand with
Right.
people.
Like
I think
honesty's-
everyone does.
Yeah, honesty's a big thing. Treat people like the way you want to be treated. I mean, just not in life in general, but all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're my PO, treat me the way you want me to treat you. If you want to be treated with respect, treat them with respect.
When you were in different facilities, MSP, Nexus, the pre-release, and even being out on parole,
Mhm.
sitting in the lobby with other probation parolees, what do you think about mixing groups of people like that?
As far as
As far as risk level. So say you have somebody who really is very new to the criminal element, but they're in the waiting room waiting to see their PO, and you have maybe somebody who is involved with selling drugs. Well, this 18-year-old kid might be a great person for me, and they exchange phone numbers in the probation office.
I don't know if I really have an opinion on that, because logistically, how else would you do it?
Logistically, how would you do it? But I've had a lot of people tell me that they've learned their criminal education level went up a bit when they were in prison. They learned sneakier behaviors. They learned better contacts that they wouldn't have otherwise had.
Yes. But then it still goes back to a choice. You make a choice to reach out to those people. You make a choice to live that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to you can't hand everybody everything. Like at some point, the accountability has to go on the person that's on parole. So you can't put a person on parole in a bubble. Like they have to do it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So especially at a waiting room at PMP or pre-release or prison, like they have to make the choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not society's responsibility to separate everybody so they don't have the responsibility to make the choice themselves.
So that philosophy was tried at Mask. I don't know if you remember Mask, but essentially it was a facility where first-time offenders went instead of like third and fourth,
Right.
to try to eliminate those connections, and it was just another jail.
Montana's so small. I mean, I know it's geographically large, but the population is so small. If somebody wants to do stuff they're not supposed to do, it's really easy to find somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all you have to do is drive down the street, especially Great Falls, because we race up in Great Falls. So going to the racetrack, I mean, you can see 4 or 5 people high on the way to the racetrack on any given day. I mean, it's same in Helena.
And
there's addicts everywhere.
And it's not like that in California.
Oh, it's way worse in California. I mean, that's why everybody is leaving California. They have homeless people sleeping on street corners and huffing paint and feces everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
have you been into any other states?
No.
Okay, so it's basically.
I mean, I've traveled to other states. Like I went to New Orleans, and it's the same thing. Somebody who wants to get high, it's very easy for them to get high. Like you can go to any town and find an addict just by looking at them.
Whether you're into getting fit or staying fit or just having fun with the family, join the Peak Health and Wellness Center today. With 2 great locations in Great Falls, they're here to serve you. If you like weightlifting, functional fitness, or enjoy a wide selection of cardio equipment, the Peak has everything you need. They also offer classes for all ages and fitness levels. The Peak even has a daycare for those busy parents out there. Go check out the Peak today. The Double Barrel Cafe is all about you, the amazing people of Cascade County. With every purchase you make, they give back to our community. Every bite and sip fuels their mission. Let's make a positive change, 1 cup and 1 bite at a time, because the Double Barrel is not just a cafe, they're building a better community. If you haven't noticed lately, Cascade County is booming, and the choice for all your construction needs is Builders First Source. They even have an automated home builders solution for all of your construction needs. Go to 826 Northwest Bypass in Great Falls and check them out today. Are you looking to replace those floors in your home? Or maybe you're doing new construction? The place I trust is Contract Flooring Carpet One. This is a locally owned and operated business here in Great Falls, and they are committed to serving you and giving you the very best prices and the very best product and service. Go see Contract Flooring Carpet One today. You'll be floored. When deciding who I would trust for the technology component of this podcast, the choice was simple: Information Systems of Montana. Whether purchasing products for business or when I had them build me a new MacBook to catch child predators, they delivered, creating a solution for my exact needs. Contact Information Systems of Montana today. Everybody needs a good insurance plan. Whether it's for home or auto insurance, check out Heinbaugh Agency. Eric Heinbaugh is a local agent focused only on customer service, not sales. If you're passionate about firearms and the Second Amendment like I am, one of the best places in all of Montana to go is Mitchell Supply. Jim and Tammy Mitchell have been running this gun store for decades. They're major supporters of the Second Amendment, and they're major supporters of our community. And obviously, they're supporters of this podcast. For all your firearms needs, go check out Mitchell Supply today.
When you were talking about being in a gang, I don't know a lot about gangs really. I mean, I know enough, but I've heard things. I don't know about how do you get into a gang? How do you get out?
If it's a street gang in California, you get jumped in like 7 or 8 guys. You fight 7 or 8 guys. If it's a prison gang in California, you typically stab somebody to get in it.
Hmm. So I can assume that you did one or the other?
Yes.
Interesting. And what happens when you want to leave?
If it's it nowadays, basically you debrief, get a hold of the gang coordinator and tell them, hey, I want out. And then you basically give up everything you know on the gang.
They,
So you
they
have
take
to-
you at your word for that?
Well, a lot of people do it so they can compare notes. Like, and in California, everything's under camera and gun. Like the prison system there knows what everybody is doing. Most of it is allowed. So, and they take you at your word and you tell them everything, and I'm sure they compare notes on what other people have said. And basically they want to see that you're making the choice.
I
Leave it.
mean, how do you physically uninvolve yourself with the gang? Is there any threat to your safety?
Oh yeah. Like you get a green light put on you, and if anybody that is active sees you, it's, they're supposed to try to kill you. That's a whole other lifestyle.
So once you get in, it's how are you supposed to get out? Other than moving to another state?
California, they'll put you on a sensitive needs yard
Okay.
if you're doing a life sentence. So there's a lot of Mexican mafia members, Aryan Brotherhood members that have dropped out because everything's changed in the last 30 years. So there's actual prison yards in California that people got tired of gangbanging and said, hey, I'm done. And everybody gets along.
What are the benefits of being in a gang, if any?
None.
People are drawn to it.
I think it's back then the prestige, the money,
Hmm.
reputation.
I know that there's people who say that they're in gangs in the prison. It's Montana. I don't
Right.
really know, but they say that. I don't know what that entails here.
I don't know either. Chris.
Billings is really having a lot of
Right.
issues though, and we're seeing that. And not necessarily the gang, but the cartel.
Mhm.
What's the difference there?
I don't know anymore because it's been so long, but if I had to assume, it's probably because of the Bakken oil field and all the drug use. And then they'd probably just have somebody there, and then now it's just kind of spreading.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Once again, back to society and our borders being wide open.
That's a whole nother podcast. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear your opinion because you've lived it. I mean, there's a lot of people, oh, I've done research in this and research in that, but you've lived it. It's fascinating to hear your opinion and your thoughts on how the way things should go. If you could make any change, what would it be?
Or with what?
With the
'Cause
criminal
I'd
justice
make a
system.
lot.
Yeah, I know.
I think everybody should go to treatment, and I think everybody should have consequences. And that's not going to be a popular opinion with a lot of my peers because there's all of this science, evidence-based stuff with trauma informed and this and that and the other. But my personal opinion is we make a conscious choice to make a bad decision. And if you make a conscious choice to make a bad decision, there should be consequences. And you should face those consequences, and then you can address the issues that might or might not have led you to make that negative choice.
Hmm. Was there a faith element in your change, in your lifestyle change?
No, so I grew up going to a private Christian school. I've read the Bible 7 times, the Book of Mormon twice, the Quran once after 9/11, just to see why. Studied all like the major world religions, just because I had lots of free time on my hands and my brother being a preacher.
Mhm.
I made the choice. Faith didn't have, I mean, I'm religious, but faith didn't have anything to do with me deciding enough's enough. I grew up,
You grew up.
who wants, became a dad, lifestyle. I lived it for so long.
Mhm. Well, and I would see people that had gotten out and were doing okay, and they got their up they got an apartment and they got nice things, couch, TV, and just would not change. And time after time of getting all those possessions, getting arrested, going back to prison, everything in their apartment gone.
Right.
Getting out, starting over, getting some things, a job, everything gone. 2 and 3 and 4 and
It's a
5
mind
times.
shift. Like you have to change the way you think and what you want in life. Like I didn't want that lifestyle anymore.
Mhm. There was a treatment provider that I worked with at probation and parole that made people write their obituary.
Art Becker.
Mm-mm.
That sounds like something Art would do.
Mm-mm. As a counselor. What do you think about that?
I think I had to do that at Nexus.
Or did you?
I also had to do the dash. That was one of the first assignments where you but basically have to fill in the dash that's on your tombstone.
And that was impactful?
It was more annoying because, like, how do I know what goes in the dash? I mean, I'm sure back then it had some psychological effect that I am unaware of now. The biggest thing was the ripple effect, like that after all these years, that's what stood out. And then, like, what do you want your legacy to be? That kind of stood out.
Mm-hmm. What do you want your legacy to be?
It's living right now. My daughter's kicking ass at life. Like,
You're living your legacy?
yeah. I mean, what's a better legacy than to see your kid be successful?
I don't know.
I mean, I can do all the stuff that I do for the community and all of my different civic groups that I do. But I mean, there's no better legacy than your kid being successful, at least for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So the passion to want a parent.
yeah, like see the next generation be successful, not accept handouts and like be a
Mhm.
good citizen.
So I'll tell you that one thing that always bothered me the most, probably when I was a probation officer, was people with children. And when they relapsed and they had children in their home, I didn't want to necessarily, like I asked you, do you think that relapsing is a new crime or is it it's definitely a bad decision. Um, but using like meth in a home with a child, I mean, we know now that that gets into their
Right.
bloodstream. I probably took those matters a lot more seriously than someone living alone.
Mhm.
And definitely go over their house and see what's going on.
Right.
There's no, when kids are involved, you got to do
Right.
everything that you
Because the
can.
kids are most important.
Yes. And that situation is going to look a whole lot more different than someone that's living on their own, to
Right.
me. And we've got a really great team in Great Falls where we actually meet at the home with the detective. They do take hair samples from kids if we have someone that's using. And they're put on they're charged for that now. If the kids are positive for meth,
I don't-
which I think that they should be.
Yeah. No, especially, yeah, because it's a kid. The kids are innocent. It's like old people. Like, I joke with people, if you're under 18, I'll do whatever I can. And if you're over 60, I'll do whatever I can. And then if you're in between, I don't really care.
Mhm.
Because kids are innocent and old people have lived life. They've had to deal with their kids and their grandkids. So, like, senior citizen kids should be protected at all costs.
Yes, for sure. I
kinda
think
where I'm
if anything, the system should do that.
Right.
And when you were involved with drug sales,
Mhm.
were kids around?
No. Drug use, yes. So my last relapse, I knew where I was headed. So I packed up my daughter and her mom and I took them to Butte. because I knew where I was going and I wasn't going to have her around it.
So I have a lot of people say, I want to get back into the community because I want to take care of my kids. And I want to believe that.
They do.
All
Like,
through-
I mean, I know lots of people that have relapsed and their kids are their most important. The problem is like their addiction is stronger. So that gets into like the whole mental health and addiction issue. The love for their kids is there. The problem is that's when the addiction takes over. So it's kind of like a gray area for me. Like, I know what I was capable of doing because I had somewhere to take my daughter and her mom. Like, I took her to her grandma's house. But not everybody has that opportunity, or not everybody has that mindset. Like, some, especially heroin addicts and fentanyl addicts, like, all they can think about is getting high. They don't think about the kids. Not that they don't love their kids and their kids are the most important, but at that point in time, their addiction completely takes over.
Mhm. And when you were selling drugs, is there like I mean, obviously you were convicted, you were caught.
Not of ever selling drugs.
No.
No.
Okay.
Uh,
Of possession?
when I was 17, that's my only drug charge.
So is there like is there like a worry of selling undercover? I mean, there's got to be.
Back then, no.
There was never.
No.
Hmm.
That was 30 years ago. Yeah. Wow. 30 years ago. That was a long time ago.
So things have changed.
Yeah.
in the
Things
drug
have
world.
changed a lot.
I wonder, have you visited California?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't for a long time. And then I have off and on recently in the last, 5-6 years.
A lot of times, I think in the drug world, at least is when law enforcement is involved, that we are getting better, I believe. But a lot of times it's, I want to get the bigger fish. So even though there's, drug sales going on in the home where there's kids, we want to talk to that guy about where he's getting his stuff and that guy about where he's getting, and then there's this trail of things that aren't even considered as high risk situations.
California is its own entity. I refer to it as a socialist republic of California, mainly because their hands are tied at doing anything because of the government. So, I mean, at least with Montana, law enforcement still has the ability to enforce the laws. California has very little laws. I mean, and look at Oregon, like they're
Crazy.
They're brilliance. So
Mhm. Yeah, that state's destroyed.
yeah.
I mean, destroyed.
So
How do you get anyone back from that?
right.
You
That
can just-
falls back on the lack of consequences in society handing and telling everybody it's okay, and the whole patting on the butt.
It's funny to hear you say that you don't think that there's accountability in Montana, or there is accountability,
Yeah.
because I sometimes feel that there's not. So
There,
it's good
there's
for me to hear
more in comparison to other states. There's more.
that. Mhm. Interesting.
I mean, I think some things could be stiffer, but
Like what?
like I said, I think there should be consequences for everything and then treatment. I
Mhm.
think Montana tends to want to do treatment first, and I don't think as a former criminal that necessarily will work, because where's the consequence?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't. There's actually been legislative changes that have tied PO's hands.
I know.
And really people just destroy their lives right in front of you,
Right.
unfortunately. Drug use is really a symptom, not considered a criminal behavior. It's more of something that's expected to happen like 20 and 30 times, things like of that nature.
When I was a teenager, if you did drugs, you got arrested and you got put on probation. And then that was it. And if you did drugs again, like, you went to jail. Like, there was like consequences, like actual consequences. Those aren't really existent anymore. I mean, there's consequences, but they're not, there's no meat to them.
Yeah, no. Well, I love Montana. I mean, I do. I think it's a great place to raise a family.
Oh, it is. Like my daughter, I wouldn't move for anything. And this isn't a political show, so I won't say. I just think people need to make sure they vote and vote correctly,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what affects society. Is if you don't vote, then bills get passed that shouldn't get passed, and laws happen that tie hands that shouldn't be tied.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it takes years and a long time to undo some of those decisions.
Right.
Because if it's passed in a legislative season and it doesn't, nothing is done about it, even if
Right.
it's ineffective, if it's not picked up the next, it's only every 2 years, and then 10 years have passed and
Right.
we still have this stuff going on.
I mean, like I said, I'm a firm believer in treatment because Nexus saved my life, but there was lots of consequences before I got to treatment. That's why treatment worked.
Have you been in any of the county jails in Montana?
Silverbow and Lewis and Clark, Boulder and Townsend.
I was always told that the county jails are way worse than prison.
Yeah, nothing's really bad here. I mean, compared to California, it's not really bad. Like all the guards, at least, I'm going to piss so many people off. At least as far as me, I've never had any issues with staff. Staff's always been really polite and respectful, but that might also be because of how I talk to staff. The food's not bad. I mean, Lewis and Clark does quick chill, but the staff's good. I mean, jail's not really, even when I was making bad choices in life, the jails weren't really a deterrent. But that falls back on human behavior. If you're going to act like an ass, you're going to get treated like an ass. If you act like a human being, you get treated like a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you've really made a successful life for yourself. You're a businessman.
Yeah.
You work a lot. You go and you present your story to people to hope and change. Has anyone told you that your story has helped them change?
Couple people. I tried to avoid doing that for a long time. Just because I'm involved with so many things and not a lot of people know my past. Just because it's the past, it doesn't really matter. I do a lot of stuff with veterans groups and different civic groups in Helena. So I've kind of just, those that know me know my past, and those that don't. So I've avoided stuff like this for a long time.
Yeah. Do you
But-
feel shame when you talk about
No,
it?
it's just, so there's always a stigma. Basically with somebody with a record. So it was kind of, I didn't need the stigma when I first got out. But 10 years down the line, even if there is the stigma at that point, like those that know me. I mean, there might be some political circles that some people are going to go, their jaw might drop, but they've known me for 5 or 6 years at this point. So,
Well, you proved yourself.
right.
I mean, we need people like you. I thank you. I mean, really, for coming and telling your story, because the ripple effect on families is tough.
Yeah.
Here, even people who raise their kids right, they turn 18 and they're idiots.
Yeah.
They don't think they think they're invincible. And it is, it's Montana, but there is still the potential for crime
Oh, yeah.
and to get involved with that. Seems like it's really popular right now for 18, 19, 20-year-olds to have guns. Why?
Unless you're going hunting or
I mean, I'm
any reason to have a gun.
I love guns, but like an 18, 19-year-old that's popular, I don't remember that
Mm-mm.
being a thing that, I mean, it didn't even cross my mind, I guess.
Unless it's opening day, I don't know why you'd need a gun.
Handguns they like, and rifles, and stuff like that. It's like a trend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
My
But
daughter's got a fascination with knives. She has since she was 6. So,
mhm.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, there's some things that are sentimental to people. Knives are one of
yeah.
them, and that's kind of in our culture in Montana is what hunting and
Right.
fishing, and unfortunately a lot of alcohol use, it seems. Um, but I like to think that we do look out for our neighbors, and I think that Montana is a special place.
It is.
Can't really define it, but it's a good place to raise a family.
Yeah. And everybody still waves at everybody. Like if you go, my folks have spent the last, 3 years looking for a place, and they finally found a place because everybody's friendly. Everybody
Mhm.
waves. Like there's some tourists that have moved that aren't friendly, but everybody is still friendly and neighborly. That doesn't
Mhm.
exist anywhere else.
And then sometimes people want to come here and change it to where
Yeah.
they came from. It's like, well, you left where you came from for a reason.
Yeah. Leave your politics there, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, in summary, for someone to be successful, they need to delete all of their associates. No associations with
Yeah.
people that
Make
are
new
involved in the
friends.
scene. Make new social friends, which I think is a really big challenge for kids these days because they're used to social media, not having conversations and building those interpersonal skills. I don't know that they have those. Not that that's an excuse, but that's a barrier. And be honest with the people who have accountability that you need to be accountable to.
And put in the work. Don't expect a handout.
It's going to be tough.
Put in the work. Like you have to put in the work. You can't expect it to be handed to you.
Get a job.
Yeah. You're not entitled to shit, but
That's
a job.
right. Yeah. The only thing your employer owes you is a paycheck, my
Right.
friend.
And you have to earn it.
You have to show up to work.
Yeah. And work, not play on your phone. And yeah.
It probably drives you crazy when you see people who haven't gone through the things you have and they just take everything for granted, I imagine.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Oh,
And they're
be
entitled
infuriating.
to all of this. And I just point out, my kid's 21 and she has better work ethic than you.
Yeah.
Like she bought her car on her own at 21 and you're however old and you're whining about this. No, not going to work.
I think that in our age group, I don't know exactly how old you are, but we kind of have a different philosophy on parenting, as where younger parents right now they've been raised in this system ever since COVID that you stay home from school.
Yeah.
If you want to, you can just do school online. You don't
Yeah.
have to go.
How are they
That's
going to function in society?
I know, but that's the fact. That's
Yeah.
where we are. Where I'm kind of a little more old school with my kids. Like, you ride your bike.
I gotta go to work. You're going to school.
I mean, that accountability is big in our house. I can't say it's always been successful though.
It has to be, but at least they're learning it. So when they get into adulthood, they're not like everybody else wanting free college and entitled to everything.
Were your parents just losing their freaking out when you were doing all this?
My mom, yeah. I put my mom through hell, and my dad and my grandma. Like they had a rough first 32 years.
Should someone that has a child that's exhibiting these behaviors take it personal, or is there just nothing your parents could have done?
No, there's nothing my folks could have done. Like at least with me, no. There's nothing. Like I made the choices and the decisions. Like it wasn't a lack of bad parenting. It was I was going to do what I wanted to do. Like thankfully, like I was instilled, before I started making the bad choices, like right from wrong and what you're supposed to and what not. So I knew it. I just chose not to do it.
Did that bother you? Your conscience?
Not back then, no. You're high all the time, so you don't really think about what's right and wrong. And plus, I justified it. I only did it to other gang members and drug dealers. I didn't really realize that I was minimizing all of my stuff until I went to Nexus.
I'm fascinated still by the control that the gangs had and that they had standards.
Oh yeah, In California, significantly.
I wonder how it is today.
Probably a lot different.
But that stuff does not happen in our prisons in Montana. There's no accountability between inmates about crime.
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
It might be, like I said, it's been over a decade, so.
Is there anything else about your story that you like people to know?
Just put in the work and you can be successful and give back. That was another thing somebody pointed out at our last meeting. Another thing we all have in common is we're all involved with something giving back. So as addicts, all you do is take. So at Nexus, AA and NA and all that's a big thing. And that was like never really my thing. So my mom's brother died in Vietnam. And then I'm really big on history. So how our Vietnam vets were treated when they came back from Vietnam is total horseshit. So when I got out, that was kind of how I was going to give back, was to veterans. And then the ripple effect assignment that I talked about. So the part that had the biggest effect on me was when I did my crime. I made the news and it wasn't pretty. I didn't think I knew what I was capable of. The media played it that I was capable of much more. So, and I'll use you as an example because you're an officer's wife. I didn't think about the officer's wife who sees this guy on the news that's armed and dangerous, whose husband is going out to look for. The stress that puts on that person or that officer's kids. And with my grandma being an officer's wife, my grandpa being a retired cop, that's what hit. So the two things I give back on, especially after the bullshit defund the police, is vets and law enforcement. So, and then all of these types of groups that are involving justice stuff, you have to give back.
Well, there's questions only you can answer. You could be in a room with 30 professionals with, how many years did you say that you guys have between them in your group?
200 and plus years.
Yeah, they could have that in experience, but it's really different when you've lived it.
Yeah.
So we need people like you. It sounds like you have empathy. And
Yes.
you've always had empathy.
Not till I went to Nexus.
You don't think so?
Well, I did, but I forgot it.
I mean, but you had a idea that some crimes were absolutely not to be committed.
Right. Oh yeah.
I've met people with no empathy, and they're
So have I.
scary.
Those are the ones that deserve to be locked up forever. Well, there's death penalties for a reason.
Do you think any of the treatment programs that you've been in, do you think that any of them can give somebody empathy?
Nexus can, well, depending on the person, if they have no concept of empathy, I don't know. I was blessed with knowing it. It's hard for me to grasp the fact for those people that have none. I think they should be given the opportunity to learn it at least once. And then if they don't learn it, then that's kind of that, and throw away the key.
It's a pretty bold statement.
I'm a dad and a grandpa. I got kids.
And you want them safe from
Right.
those type
And
of people.
my
They shouldn't
kid-
be walking the street.
Right. My kids are going to have kids, and my grandkids are going to have kids. And
And I bet that you can probably see it a mile away.
I used to, I don't know anymore. I'm so far out of, my friend circle is completely, my two closest friends, one used to be security at the pre-release and one was my case manager at the pre-release. I don't, the events that I go to, that's just,
You couldn't see somebody that came into a business or something, and you could tell right away that they're high, or
I can tell if
the
they're
criminal
high.
the criminal behavior.
for the 50-50. Like I've been blindsided a lot the last couple of years, and that's how I know I'm either getting rusty or if
I think that's how you know that you're completely rehabilitated,
yeah,
honestly. Even from a perspective of being in the profession, it's not a healthy profession.
right.
It's really if something happens and you knew about it and you just took that person for their word, someone gets hurt, it's because of you.
Right.
And it's not entirely because of the officer, but it's because they didn't act.
Mhm.
And so you kind of keep your guard up and you look for signs instead of maybe how this person can be successful. But I think that's when people don't meet you halfway and say, these are the things that are going on in my life. So you do think, well, what else is going on over there?
Right.
I'm going to need to see because this person just is not
It's not
communicating
adding
at
up.
all. How are they paying all their bills and they're not working, which is so many nice cars and new cell phones and nice clothes, more that I can afford, and
Right.
they're not working. It's like red flag. And consequences and treatment, you got to use both of them.
Mhm.
You're expected to by Montana statute. So you've come, I mean, it's just amazing the changes you made. Really.
Made a choice.
So the people that are in your group that do the presentations, are they similar crimes or are they different crimes?
It's the whole ballpark. Like there's everything from DUIs to murder to there's a little bit of everything.
And you all share the same sentiment that you had a caring and kind PO.
Not the majority. It's just like a theme.
Mm-hmm.
I work a lot, so I have 50,000 things going on.
Yeah.
But the majority, it's the theme, like without having to remember everybody's specific. That's one thing that stands out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to get out to people other than just work hard? Work hard.
And vote.
Do you think that the changes are different from male and female that need to be that they need to make in their life?
No, because it's all about choice. Like I don't really buy into the whole gender stuff. I mean, you're a human being. You make a conscious decision. You make a choice. You either do it or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think gender plays a role or anything else. It's a decision you make as an individual.
And your life is happier and healthy. I imagine your stress level is much lower.
Oh yeah, so life's great.
If they could just see that, if they could feel that for 5 minutes.
Yeah, life. I mean, you have real life stresses like bills and
Mm-hmm.
I get to see my grandson again or stupid stuff.
But you don't have people pointing guns at you.
No. I think my biggest concern right now is getting my race motor put in my mud bogger. It's like my biggest stress. Other than that, I don't have any stresses.
It just kind of went away when you let go.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming today. And we have a thank you card for you and some gifts. We have a bag from the Peak. That's a gym here. But also, most importantly, Pursuit
Nice.
Podcast Challenge
you.
coin. ACBC here in Great Falls made those for us.
Nice.
Yes, and I just want to thank you again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Hey everybody, Jesse Slaughter with the Pursuit Podcast. And we really appreciate the amazing support already that this channel has received. Our social media is blowing up. Everywhere we look, people are liking and clicking and commenting. But what we really need you to do is subscribe to our Facebook page and follow us on Spotify. That's what drives this channel. That's what's going to keep this channel going forever. Tim and Ben are behind the scenes doing tireless editing, working on this to make this come out the way it does, this high quality product that it is. So please go in there, click subscribe, click follow, and make sure that this channel sticks around for a long time because we truly believe it's doing a lot of great things for our community. But there's many, many other people out there who we need to support. So follow and subscribe today. Thank you.